Going all the way from your 20s to your 70s, I've narrowed down the best ETF that I would choose for each decade of my life if I could only pick one per decade. And for those that think that you need numerous investments to build an ultimate portfolio, realize that one of the best investors of all time, Warren Buffett, said that diversification is protection against ignorance. It makes little sense if you know what you are doing. Now, by no means am I saying to follow this strategy for your entire life, because having only one ETF won't cover all the exposure that you may want, and I even personally own numerous ETFs myself. But for the sake of this video and picking only one ETF, as you watch through this, think about the concepts behind each ETF and what purpose it serves that make it my single best choice for the specific age group that I mentioned. Which I will say, if you have any other top options that you'd rather pick, feel free to put your top picks in the comments below for others and I to become aware of, and see what you would do if you could only pick one ETF for each decade. But knowing that, before we get started, my name is Danny Sully. I run the company InvestLane with the mission to help others learn how to save and invest wisely to build lasting wealth. And all I ask is that if you do find value from this video, that you consider hitting the like, subscribe, and notifications button for future content like this. With that said, let's get straight to it by first going over the 20s. Now, since I'm personally in my 20s, this one is a really easy choice for me and actually makes up the largest portion of my own investments, and that is through a US large cap growth ETF, where my personal favorite pick right now is Charles Schwab's with the ticker of SCHG. And before you question why SCHG, just realize that other top alternatives that follow the same concept include QQQ, that is actually the 5th largest ETF in the market, or VUG, that is the 7th largest ETF. And I have to mention QQQM, that follows the exact same index as QQQ, that is the NASDAQ 100, but QQQM has just a slightly lower expense ratio, being 0.15%, and is more so best for those that are simply looking to just simply buy and hold the investment long term. Where on the other end, QQQ has a 0.18% expense ratio, but much higher liquidity that makes it a great option for active traders. All in all, among these ETFs, picking just one is a tough choice, and that definitely varies based on your personal situation and how you view things. But a big reason on why I personally choose SCHG over QQQ is because Invesco's QQQ tracks the NASDAQ 100 index, which means it solely gives you access to the performance of 100 of the largest non-financial companies listed on the NASDAQ. That means that QQQ is much more concentrated, because SCHG, on the other hand, tracks the Dow Jones US Large Cap Growth Total Stock Market Index, where instead of 100 holdings in QQQ, SCHG contains 196 holdings that are all publicly traded US stocks diversified across all sectors. So just realize that you can't go wrong with either of the four that I just mentioned, that are SCHG, QQQ, QQQM, or VUG. But to quickly break down more about SCHG, realize that when you go to buy this fund, the top holdings that you are going to get instant exposure to include Nvidia, Apple, and Microsoft, that each make up between roughly 7 to 11.5% of the weight toward the fund. Not just that, but when we add up the top 10 holdings together, they make up roughly 57% of the entire fund's weight. And then if we look at the top sectors that make up SCHG, we have infotech at roughly 45%, communication services at about 15%, and many others where you can see the financial sector is included in this fund with about 7% of the weight. Not to mention, but the cost to own SCHG per year, which is known as the expense ratio, for SCHG, that is 0.04%, which means for every $10,000 that you invest, it would cost you $4 per year in fees. Another thing I love about growth investing, especially early on, is that a fund like SCHG, it pays a super low dividend yield, where you can see SCHG's dividend yield over the trailing 12 months came out to be 0.37%. This is great to see, because it means that those companies are reinvesting their profits back into their own business to further that growth, rather than paying their shareholders a piece of their profits to thank them. Now, growth companies like the ones that are included in SCHG, they tend to be more volatile, so owning the fund like that has more volatile risk than many others that I'll mention in this video. But if you are able to buy and hold for many years without having to touch the funds or think to selling them, which that should be the mindset when you're in your 20s, is to do that, then the long-term reward of doing so could greatly outweigh many of the other alternatives, especially the ones that I'm about to mention later in this video. In fact, looking at the data, if you owned SCHG since January of 2017 to April of 2026, then you would have averaged 18.88% per year in total growth, which means a $100,000 investment in 2017 would have turned into roughly $500,000 by today, all by doing nothing but letting the investment sit. So while there is more short-term volatility, the potential for more growth, especially if you can start early on, is crucial to get a grip on compounding your money as soon as you can. But knowing that about the 20s, let's now go over the 30s. The concept here is that as you get into your 30s, you're likely going to have more financial responsibilities come up, and you may need to reduce the risk slightly while still keeping a strong foundation that can still allow your money to grow well, since you still have so much of life ahead of you. And so because of this, rather than getting purely US large cap growth stocks, the single ETF that I would pick here, if I could only pick one, would be to track the popular S&P 500 index, and that would be through Vanguard's VOO. Now, for those that don't know, the S&P 500 represents 500 of the largest US-based companies and is considered a gauge of overall US stock returns. And while I'm on it, realize that there are many other S&P 500 ETFs that you could buy. So the first one, Vanguard's VOO, that I just mentioned, it has a 0.03% expense ratio. There's also iShares IVV that has a 0.03% expense ratio as well. Then there's State Street's SPY that is more so meant for active traders that has a 0.0945% annual expense. But also know that State Street has their own long-term buy and hold option that is SPYM that has a 0.02% annual expense, and you could think of the creation of SPY and SPYM like QQQ and QQQM. And then the last one, for those that are truly seeking the cheapest possible option, there is the BNY Mellon BKLC ETF. This is 0% expense ratio, so it really doesn't get cheaper than that. But as far as VOO, realize that when you go to buy this S&P 500 ETF, the top companies are very similar to growth ETFs like SCHG, but now companies like Nvidia, Apple, and Microsoft have less weight, being around 5 to 7.5% each toward the fund, because now there's roughly 500 companies, so this fund provides stronger diversification. In fact, because of that, you can also see that there is less tech exposure, where VOO now has about 33% of the weight toward infotech, and financials is actually the second largest at 12.6%, and communication services being the only double-digit sector thereafter. Aside from that, a fun fact is that VOO is actually the largest ETF in the market by currently having almost $936 billion in assets under its management, where you can see the other top options like IVV and SPY that are right thereafter as the second and third largest ETFs. And knowing that, if we look at almost a decade of data on VOO, going back from January 2017 to today, if you held $100,000 of VOO throughout that entire time and did nothing else, you would have ended up with about $374,000 by averaging 15.19% per year on average. Which, the last point I have to mention about VOO over the past year is that it has paid out a dividend yield of 1.06%. All right, knowing that about the 30s, let's now move on to the 40s. What's interesting here is that the ETF that I picked, if we look back at the largest ones in the market, after the three S&P 500 ETFs that I just mentioned, the next on my list is the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF VTI that currently has almost $630 billion in assets under its management. And so the reason that I like VTI as the next one on this list is that now instead of getting 500 US large cap companies, VTI now instead tracks the performance of the CRSP US Total Market Index, which means it provides exposure to large, mid, and small cap stocks, diversified across growth and value styles, where instead of 500 companies with the S&P 500, you are now able to own just over 3,500 companies that make up the broad US economy, all within one purchase. Which, before I dive deeper into that, realize two other top alternatives here would be iShares ITOT or Charles Schwab's SCHB. All are solid options, but if we look further at VTI, the top companies are also very similar to VOO, the S&P 500s, but now with even more holdings, so there's slightly less exposure to the top ones like Nvidia, Apple, and Microsoft, where you can see that they now make up between 4 to 6.5% of the weight toward the fund each. But interestingly enough, there is slightly more technology exposure, and then a few others thereafter like consumer discretionary, industrials, and financials as top sectors that make up the fund. Which, not just that, but VTI also has paid out a dividend yield of 1.04% over the trailing 12 months. And lastly, from almost a decade of data, holding from January 2017 to today, $100,000 in VTI would have turned into almost $356,000 by today, from averaging 14.57% per year, which is just slightly less than the S&P 500 at 15.19%. All right, so knowing that about the 40s, let's now move on to the 50s. Now this is where things change a bit, because as you get into your 50s, ideally you are getting close to retirement. So for this decade, I'm looking to pick an ETF that aims for dividends while still achieving growth, which is why my pick here is the Vanguard Dividend Appreciation ETF, VIG. And before I discuss further on that, two other top options that I'd consider would be the iShares Core Dividend Growth ETF, DGRO, or even Wisdom Tree's US Quality Dividend Growth ETF, DGRW. But as far as Vanguard's VIG, this fund tracks the performance of the S&P US Dividend Growers Index that contains large cap equity and emphasizes stocks with a record of growing their dividends year over year. And looking further, this fund has 334 holdings, where you can see top ones in the fund include Broadcom, Apple, and Microsoft, where the top 10 alone make up between 2 to 4% of the weight each toward the fund. And not just that, but the top sectors include infotech, financials, healthcare, industrials, and then consumer staples thereafter. Now, if you are one that is actually looking to bring in a dividend income, you may rather another option, because VIG over the past year has paid out a 1.5% dividend yield, so the use of this really depends on your situation and what you're looking for. But I will add, if you want a higher income, the alternative DGRO has paid out a 2% dividend yield. Or if you are personally seeking a monthly income, DGRW pays out the dividends monthly and has computed a 1.31% yield. But realize here that if you owned VIG for almost the last decade, that $100,000 would have turned into $319,000 from averaging 13.24% per year, which is less than the S&P 500. But the goal as you near retirement should be to prioritize how your funds are going to last the rest of your life. And so looking further into it, the standard deviation was just slightly less than the S&P 500, and the worst year was actually half of the S&P 500, where VIG's worst year was down about 9%, where VOO's was down 18%. In the end, the idea here is to start the transition to retirement with potentially more stable companies that can still see strong potential growth and the ability to reap an income as you near retirement, which leads me into the next section, that is the 60s. For this decade, I am looking for the strongest overall dividend equity ETF that still offers the potential for strong growth and a solid income, which is why my pick here is Charles Schwab's SCHD. Now, when it comes to one of the best overall dividend investments, SCHD is my personal favorite, and I actually don't have any other alternatives that I'd recommend, at least for this decade, to choose from instead of SCHD, looking for a solid best overall dividend ETF. You see, to start this off, SCHD tracks the Dow Jones US Dividend 100 Index, where the fund is focused on the quality and sustainability of its dividends. And so currently, SCHD has a low 0.06% expense ratio, a total of 103 holdings, where the top ones include well-known dividend-paying companies like Texas Instrument, Coca-Cola, or Chevron, where many of the top ones range from 3.5% to 5.5% of the weight currently. Which, not to mention, but the largest sectors include consumer staples, healthcare, energy, and industrials. But what's great about SCHD is that it pays a very strong dividend yield, where over the past 12 months, that computed to be 3.33%. And if we just did a simple calculation and said that you had $1 million in SCHD, that means that you would reap $33,000 per year in dividends, which is almost $3,000 per month, although do know that SCHD pays out its dividends on a quarterly basis. But what's great here is that even with all the strong dividend exposure that you can get with SCHD, if we look since January of 2017, you can see that if you had $100,000 invested and did nothing else, that would have turned into just over $300,000 by averaging 12.56% per year, which is also less than the S&P 500. But one fact here that really stands out to me is that the worst year declined just 5.5%, where the S&P 500 was down 18%. So to gain more stability with US equities and reap a solid income as you near or are in retirement, SCHD is beyond my favorite for this. But like I said, this entirely depends on your situation, and you may want more or less of a dividend income, which the rule of only picking one ETF doesn't apply in real life, so you could easily build a diverse portfolio suited to your own needs if you were to pick a few more ETFs. Alright, but knowing that about the 60s, let's now move on to the 70s. First off, according to the CDC, the average life expectancy for both men and women combined is 79 years old. But just looking at that, it doesn't mean that you should plan for this to be the end, because if you're 65 and in decent health today, reports say that there's roughly a 25% chance you'll live past 90. The ages differ, but the key reason to mention this is because if you're in your 70s, you really want to make sure that you are taking in enough of an income and that your savings won't die on you at an age that matters most, and you're likely not going to want, or for some, not even be able to work, especially as you progress into your 80s and 90s. Because of this, if I could only pick one ETF for someone to use at this stage in their life, I would choose to invest into JP Morgan's Equity Premium Income ETF, JPI. Which, before I discuss further, understand that this fund is not very tax efficient, so I would ideally recommend this to be inside of a tax advantaged account like an IRA. And I will say your income bracket is likely to be much lower in retirement, so it's at least better now than at the peak of your career. But if you are one using a taxable brokerage account, I want you to at least be aware of more tax efficient options that are similar to this, like NEO's S&P 500 High Income ETF, SPYI, or even NEO's NASDAQ 100 High Income ETF, QQQI. And while I'm on it, especially in a tax advantaged account like the IRA that I just mentioned, another JP Morgan alternative that is also very solid to consider is the JP Morgan NASDAQ Equity Premium Income ETF, JPQ. Now, to pick one ETF at this point in your life is a difficult choice to choose. That's why we don't have to choose one. But what I would recommend, to at least the minimum, is that you have some form of security with cash, whether that be bonds or a high yield savings account that can allow you to earn interest on your savings without the downside risk. But if I could only pick one ETF to put all my retirement savings into to reap an income and ideally last a long time, my top pick would be JPI for those in the 70s, especially if you have an IRA set up. Now, of the things to know about JPI, realize that the fund has a higher expense than most, where it has a 0.35% expense ratio, and that is because this fund is actively managed, where it seeks to deliver a monthly distributable income and equity market exposure with less volatility. And so the reason that this fund is not very tax efficient is because the majority of its income comes from option strategies, but that's also what has allowed this fund to produce an 8.38% dividend yield over the past year. Truthfully, that is a higher dividend yield than I would prefer to see, because that means that the income is taking away from the appreciation in your portfolio's value. But even with that type of portfolio, you're still not very likely to have it decline much in value over time, and that type of cash flow would allow many to reap a solid income. Now, unfortunately, the data only goes back to January 2021 because JPI is a fairly new ETF, but so far you can see that this fund would have turned $100,000 into $160,000 by averaging 9.3% per year. And yes, that is much less than the S&P 500, but the standard deviation is much lower. The worst year was only down 3.5% when compared to the S&P 500 being down 18%. And best of all, from all of this with JPI, you could reap a very strong income without needing millions of dollars to live off of. For example, data from Empower shows that the median retirement savings for those in the 70s is $432,000, and if you generated an 8.38% dividend yield from JPI in 1 year with those savings, ideally with an IRA, then you would have generated nearly $36,000 in 1 year alone, which is equivalent to roughly $3,000 per month. If that's in a Roth IRA specifically, you get to avoid taxes entirely, and don't forget that you may have other financial benefits as well, like Social Security, pension, or income from a rental property, just to name a few ideas that could help you out. Now, I have to say, from all the data that I mentioned in this video, don't forget that the past doesn't guarantee anything in the future, but if you are interested to see data for all these ETFs in one place, many other top investments in the market, and even popular investment portfolios that you could learn more about, I highly recommend checking out our free index fund cheat sheet that we've created at InvestLane that I'll have linked in the description below. And while you're at it, if you want to get started on a new investing platform or even high yield savings account, I'll have direct links below to some of the top options that you could get started with. And please know, at the end of the day, I want you to do what's best for your finances, but do know that depending on the ones you choose to get started with, I may earn a commission for it, which is greatly appreciated. And as always, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and notifications button for future content like this.